Hello, I'm Sugar. This is my guide for Normal and Heroic Amalgamation Chamber. The encounter has two phases. Strategize for your group whether to use Hero on pull or save it because phase 2 can be more challenging. In phase 1, the raid faces Essence of Shadow and Eternal Blaze. Both bosses have a stacking debuff that pulses every 5 seconds. Corrupting Shadow reduces max HP by 1%, while Blazing Heat deals fire damage every second. To avoid having both, split the raid into 2 equal groups and tank each boss 50 yards apart. While together, Elemental Instability will increase their damage and cause raid-wide AoE until they are separated. Taunt swap the bosses around 8 to 10 stacks or after the soak abilities on the fireside end. Geared groups may not need to swap in normal. Essence of Shadow's abilities include Coalescing Void, which detonates an orb players should run away from to minimize damage taken. Umbral Detonation surrounds several players with an 8-yard circle that erupts after 6 seconds, forcing players to move out of the group because it leaves behind a lingering Umbra pool. Shadow Convergence is a heroic mode ability that spawns several orbs that are pulled into the boss, dealing lethal damage to anyone in their path. For tanks, be aware of Shadow Spike. This ability inflicts shadow damage and needs to be mitigated when at high stacks of corrupting shadows. The second boss, Eternal Blaze, has a few notable abilities. The first is Fiery Meteor, which creates a 8-yard circle that needs to be soaked by a few players on that side to avoid lethal fire damage. In heroic mode, Molten Eruption summons multiple fireballs that also need to be soaked. Missing any results in a moderate burst of damage to the raid. Another ability, Swirling Flame, targets a nearby player and pushes a wall of fire towards them, dealing damage to anyone caught in their path. Lastly, the boss uses Flame Slash, which deals fire damage to the tank and requires mitigation at higher stacks of Blazing Heat. Once one of the bosses reaches 50%, they combine the remaining HP to form a Shadowflame Amalgamation, and phase 2 begins. The raid is now debuffed with Shadowflame Contamination, pulsing damage every 10 seconds, and reducing max HP by 1%. Healers will need to rotate CDs at higher stacks. Abilities in this phase are a combination of both bosses. Gloom Configuration calls down a meteor that requires at least 6 players to soak and split the damage. If not enough players soak, the raid takes lethal damage. Once soaked, players should run away from the orb of energy it creates. A second wave of damage will detonate after a few seconds, inflicting less damage to players farther away. Blistering Twilight envelops several players with an 8-yard circle. Upon expiration, a patch of engulfing heat is left at their location, and swirling Shadowflame tornadoes erupt outwards, dealing damage and knocking back anyone in their path. Run this mechanic away from the raid and do not stack them. In heroic difficulty, Convergent Eruption calls down fireballs that need to be soaked. If any of the fireballs are missed, the raid will take a moderate burst of damage for each. Orbs of Darkness then converge on the impact locations, dealing damage to anyone hit. Tanks need to taunt swap between Withering Vulnerability, which increases Shadowflame damage taken by 200% for 10 seconds, and Shadowflame Burst, a frontal cone towards the boss's target. It's crucial to keep the boss steady, as moving during this ability can endanger the whole raid. Here's a TLDR for this fight. I've also included a cheese strategy that was popular during testing on the album. I had some success with it on normal with the bosses stacked, and in heroic with the Essence of Shadow pulled away. These might work on live, but use at your own risk. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more boss guides. Okay, bye!